Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Thursday. Today, we are diving into a major battle brewing between blue state governors and the National Governors Association. A fight over federal troop deployments, state sovereignty, and the most obvious of all, political theater. So here's the headline. California's Gavin Newsom and Illinois' J.B. Pritzker are threatening to walk out of the National Governors Association. And it's all because the group won't condemn President Trump's deployment of National Guard troops to certain states. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Nelly Miranda.
Let me be clear. Donald Trump is using our service members as political props and as pawns in his illegal effort to militarize our nation's cities. I want to thank Attorney General Kwame Raoul and his staff, along with my general counsel, Ann Spillane, and our excellent governor's office legal team for working tirelessly for weeks now to prepare federal lawsuits in anticipation of this unconstitutional invasion of Illinois by the federal government.
With Governor Gavin Newsom once again pledging to take his battle with the Trump administration to court.
This comes after the White House confirmed some 300 members of the California National Guard were deployed to Portland, Oregon. And we've now learned more than 200 are already there. Just yesterday, a federal judge stepped in, temporarily blocking President Trump from deploying the Oregon National Guard for 14 days, saying the protests there were not significantly violent or disruptive, and indicating the president may have overstepped his authority. Today, Governor Newsom called Trump's deployment of California troops to Oregon a breathtaking abuse of the law and power.
In a statement, the governor went on to say the commander-in-chief is using the U.S. military as a political weapon against American citizens. He added, the public cannot stay silent in the face of such reckless and authoritarian conduct by the President of the United States.
As always, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Okay, so these two Democratic governors claim the troop deployments violate state sovereignty. That's interesting because who would not want to clean up their cities and fast? If local law enforcement is overwhelmed, accept temporary help, get back to baseline, and go from there. But what it sounds like is they want a national association to pick a political fight with the sitting president instead of doing his job, facilitating cooperation between states. This has nothing to do with the Constitution, but everything to do with ego and optics. Newsom and Pritzker are trying to outflank each other for 2028, flexing their anti-Trump credentials.
Outside of federal buildings in Oregon and Illinois, protesters are coming face to face with federal law enforcement over the Trump administration's escalating ICE raids and National Guard deployments.
This is not a war zone!
In Chicago, the clashes led to federal agents deploying tear gas, shooting rubber bullets, and arresting protesters over the weekend. A 30-year-old woman was shot and injured by a Border Patrol agent Saturday after Department of Homeland Security officials alleged she was armed and used her car to ram a federal vehicle.
They claimed it was defensive fire. But frankly, we cannot trust anything that comes out of the administration.
For weeks, President Trump has vowed to deploy the National Guard to Chicago over political demonstrations and crime rates that local leaders dispute. Illinois Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker has not complied with the president, prompting Trump to instead authorize hundreds of Guard members from Texas be sent in.
People don't care. They don't want crime in their cities. And we're doing it, and we're doing it well.
The administration unsuccessfully tried to use a similar strategy in Oregon over the weekend. A Trump-appointed judge blocked the president's plan to send in federal troops, siding with local and state officials and ruling the president's description of protests in Portland was simply untethered to the facts. Portland police say no one was arrested during the weekend protests, adding they didn't observe any person or property crimes. Just hours after that first ruling, Oregon's Attorney General received notice that the administration is deploying the California National Guard, prompting an emergency hearing where the judge halted any troops from being deployed to Oregon, at least for now.
When the court says no, the court means no, and that is not an invocation for negotiation.
So they are claiming that NGA is too silent, but silence doesn't mean complicity. It means neutrality. The NGA's purpose isn't to become a partisan mouthpiece every time a governor gets offended. This tantrum highlights exactly what's wrong with the Democratic leadership today. They scream democracy and unity, yet the moment a bipartisan organization doesn't echo their outrage, they threaten to quit. And remember, Democratic governors from Kansas, Michigan, and Minnesota already left the NGA earlier this year. So what we're seeing isn't just political posturing, it is the complete unraveling of bipartisan cooperation in the states.
New from our Capitol Bureau tonight, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly is joining another prominent Democrat in stepping away from the bipartisan National Governors Association. Now, Kelly, who is the chair of the Democratic Governors Association, confirms to 27 News she's leaving the organization. Kelly and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz are reportedly unhappy with the group's failure to push back against the Trump administration. Kelly tells our 27 News Capitol Bureau Kansas is not benefiting enough from the NGA for her to remain a member.
I just felt like Kansas was not getting a return on investment, and we will keep our eyes on it. The NGA does some very, very good things, particularly in the area of training for governors' staffs, but there also need to be a state rights advocate, and I think they've sort of fallen down on that role.
Kelly tells us she'll stop paying dues to the NGA at the end of the month and says she's open to rejoining the group once it focuses more on advocating for states.
Now, let's talk about what this means constitutionally. The National Guard can be deployed across state lines under federal authority. It's legal, it's constitutional, and it's been done by both Republican and Democratic presidents for decades. When Trump sends troops to violent areas like Chicago or Portland, he is responding to breakdowns in law and order, something that these governors fail to handle themselves. But instead of owning their failures, they cry state sovereignty, and yet these are the same governors that had no problem when the Biden administration meddled in red states, pushing federal mandates, EPA overreach, and even COVID restrictions. So please, spare us the newfound concern for the Constitution. Here's the irony. Democrats only remember the 10th Amendment when it is convenient. When the federal government wants to control local education or enforce liberal climate laws, they cheer. But when Trump enforces law and order, they scream dictatorship. The NGA used to be one of the few remaining bipartisan platforms where governors work together on policy, infrastructure, and natural disasters. And if Newsom and Pritzker walk away, that tradition dies. It becomes just another club for partisan grandstanding. A blue state coalition screaming about Trump while their own states crumble under crime, homelessness, and tax flight.
Gavin Newsom's state is having a sudden change of heart. The pompadour of pomposity himself just signed a bill to fast-track approvals for 2,000 new oil and gas wells annually. This is near Bakersfield, California, Kern County, trying to keep energy companies from fleeing California. It may be too little too late. And Newsom, and frankly, all the people in California who voted for him and all the other Democrats, they are getting what they deserve and what they voted for.
Here's what's really going on. Newsom and Pritzker aren't mad about troops. They're mad that red states like Florida, Texas, and Tennessee are leading the charge on law enforcement cooperation. Trump's move, allowing National Guard units from one state to assist another, creates a sense of unity among conservative states. It's states helping each other, bypassing DC's bureaucracy. Newsom says these deployments are a violation of states' rights. But if California was serious about state rights, they'd protect their border, their businesses, and their law enforcement instead of blaming Trump for everyday mess that they create. And J.B. Pritzker, I know he's lying because he is presiding over one of the most violent cities in America. Maybe instead of quitting the Governors Association, he should quit ignoring Chicago's murder rate. Remember what went down in Chicago during Labor Day weekend? Let me remind you.
Deadly Labor Day weekend in Chicago as President Trump continues to set his eye on the city, threatening to send in the National Guard as early as this week. At least 52 people have been shot in Chicago over the Labor Day weekend. 7 of those victims died.
The violence included 3 mass shootings that happened at Haddon in California, in Chicago's Humboldt Park neighborhood, and 2 in Chicago's Bronzeville neighborhood, 35th and State and 36th and Cottage Grove. ABC 7's Jasmine Miner talked to people in Bronzeville about concerns about 2 mass shootings happening within 48 hours.
Many here in Bronzeville describe the neighborhood as on the come up, and they say they're not going to let the violence stop the positive work they're doing. For one woman, that means keeping kids healthy, active, and on the field.
Come on. Come on. We're gonna push through because it disservices the kids.
Alexis Hawthorne, owner of the top-tier university football youth program, says even gun violence won't keep her from serving kids in need. Their practice comes just a few hours and down the road from a mass shooting early this morning. 5 people were shot near 36th and Cottage Grove near Ellis Park, including a 17-year-old who is in critical condition.
At the end of the day, to have one person that was critically injured and 4 folks in the hospital, whatever the situation was, it was senseless.
It is the second mass shooting in Bronzeville in the last 48 hours. The other happened on Saturday night near 35th and State, where 7 people were hurt during a drive-by. Those like Alderman Pat Howell are taking action, telling ABC7 in a statement, "I have long asked for additional police manpower to deal with large illegal gatherings and pop-up parties that routinely occur throughout the Bronzeville neighborhood." It follows Mayor Brandon Johnson signing an executive order this week to avoid the Trump administration from sending the National Guard into the streets of Chicago.
Us as people, we can come together and fix it out on our own. We don't need no one to come here and, wreck shack our community.
Others think the troops could help.
I got kids, and I want to see the community better.
Again, I feel like this stunt isn't just about policy. It's about optics. Newsom and Pritzker are fighting for national headlines, trying to appear like the moral compass of the Democratic Party. But in reality, they are proving conservatives right. Democrats cannot govern without playing the victim. At the end of the day, Trump's National Guard deployments were lawful and necessary. The NGA's neutrality is the only adult move in the room. So the next time Gavin Newsom talks about unity, remind him that unity doesn't mean demanding everyone agrees with you. It means working together through disagreements without walking away. So what do you think? Should the NGA stay neutral, or should they call out Trump's troop deployments? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, if honest commentary brings you value, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. And ring the little bell so you never miss an update. And if you missed the breakdown I did on Karen Bass's top aide faking a bomb threat in LA City Hall and getting off with a slap on the wrist, be sure to go watch it. I'll link it right above.